people in high positions acquiring assets through shell companies is not a small matter. And I think this is the day of reckoning has come for many. They'll all be accountable.
All right, you're watching Reality Check, decoding the big story of the day. It was meant to be the 3-year anniversary of the Modi government, but it's the day of reckoning, says the finance minister. A reference to raids on 2 key opposition figures, P. Chidambaram and Lalu Yadav. Now, we'll come to the politics behind the raids later. But let's first examine the evidence that the investigating agencies have put out. Let's begin first with the raids on the residence and offices of Karti Chidambaram, son of the former finance minister, in Chennai and elsewhere. The CBI says that this is part of their investigation into allegations that Karti received kickbacks from INX Media, that company that ran the channel NewsX, in exchange for INX to receive special favors from the finance ministry, headed at that time by his father. The FIR, which names Karti as well as Peter and Indrani Mukherjee, the then owners of INX, says this. It says that Chidambaram helped bypass INX violations and Karti took kickbacks. It starts off in 2007 when the Peter Mukherjee owned channel sought clearance for a 4 crore foreign investment, just over 4 crores. INX Media also sought clearance for a 26% investment in INX News. Now, the FIPB and P. Chidambaram, who was finance minister, cleared the 4.6 crore investment but refused the 26% investment in the news business. Despite this, INX Media went ahead with the 26% investment in the news and instead of 4.6 crore actually got 300 crores of FDI. To legalize the violation, the CBI says, INX signed with Karti Chidambaram's company and said that Karti used his influence in the finance ministry to get that clearance for INX. In return, the CBI alleges, INX paid 10 lakhs to Karti's proxy firm as a quote-unquote consultancy fee. Chidambaram and the finance ministry bypassed the FIPB to legalize this violation, says the CBI, calling it a deceitful, fallacious proposal approved by Mr. Chidambaram and the finance ministry. Karti's proxy companies also got 3.5 crores from INX for media content market research, says the CBI. Now, Karti Chidambaram has spoken briefly to the media shortly earlier this evening after the raids and said this.
I have never ever interfered in the functioning or have I interceded on behalf of anybody with the government of India. All these charges are completely bogus and I will stand vindicated one day. I am being harassed politically, I will face this politically.
All right, I never have influenced any decision, says Karti Chidambaram. Mr. Chidambaram himself earlier today attended court in Bangalore in his professional avatar as a lawyer. Now, he refused to actually take any questions from the media, but in a statement he said that the clearances were given by the FIPB as a body and there's no allegation against him or by the FIPB officials who cleared the investment. He also said that this was an attempt to silence him because he was turning out to be a regular and vocal critic of the government. Now, sources close to Karti Chidambaram say that these are legitimate companies that he runs, which gives legal advice to a number of companies. But when we visited the offices of one of these Karti-run or indirectly Karti-run companies called Advantage Consultancy Private Limited, and this was about a year ago, this is what we found.
We are right outside Advantage Strategic Private Limited office, which is located in Nandanam Extension in Chennai. We've been inside the office. It's fairly small. It just has 2 rooms. And not a single employee has come into the office since 2 in the afternoon. This is a company that has subsidiaries in Singapore and Spain and has pumped in crores into these companies over the years.
Okay, so this company, Advantage Consultancy, which is meant to be the nodal company that receives now all these contracts from different businesses in exchange for advice on how to sort out their legal issues or other issues. This is the justification used by those close to Karti Chidambaram to say, look, I was just running a legitimate business. But as we just found there in our report, when we actually went to the spot, this company just had this two-room office in a house. There was nobody really there. There was no activity that was going on, raising serious questions about the nature of this company, and therefore those questions once again about whether this was just a platform for quid pro quo by Karti Chidambaram. GVL Narasimha Rao of the BJP joining me on the show tonight. GVL Narasimha Rao, thanks very much indeed for being there. Now, you heard Karti Chidambaram there and his father saying that this is political vendetta, this is just an attempt to silence them.
Vasu, this has now become a very stereotypical response for all political leaders who are facing a cloud.
Right.
And the charges are very specific. There is a 10-page FIR of which I have a copy. I'm sure you have a copy of it too.
Yes, we have a
it
copy
talks
as
about
well.
specific allegations, and there was an enforcement directorate show cause notice that was issued to him a few weeks ago, about
Yes.
3-4 weeks ago. I think that also spells out very clearly the kind of charges that are leveled against in terms of FEMA violations, money laundering violations. I think these are very specific charges.
No,
You cannot simply get away
they are very
saying,
specific charges. I
claiming
just
political
wanna-
vendetta.
Okay, let me just bring in Priyanka Chaturvedi of the Congress who joins us also, as does Josie Joseph, investigative journalist whose book Feast of Vultures is out as well, which looks at corruption scandals in India. Priyanka Chaturvedi, now, at the very least, just the idea that the finance minister's son would be running a company that provides consultancy to get clearances from the finance ministry itself, to get FIPB clearances, doesn't that pose a huge conflict of interest?
So, firstly, I can't hear you clearly, Srinivasan. I think your question was something to do with,
Can you hear me now?
and my own voice is echoing.
Okay. If you have a problem, we'll come back to you in a second. We'll just fix that. We'll come back to you in a second. I just want to take this back to GVL Narasimha Rao while we sort out audio issues with Priyanka. GVL Narasimha Rao, one of the things, though, that does come to mind about the CBI's FIR is that while it talks about these allegations and the very, very, very deep role of the finance ministry and its officials, it doesn't actually name any finance ministry officials, and it also stops short of actually naming Mr. Chidambaram himself, even though it says that he played a role in this very wrongful decision making. Why is that?
I have no idea, Srinivasan. I cannot really speak for, obviously it is the agencies which prepare and finalize these FIRs.
Right.
I think that's a question possibly they can answer. But this FIR mentions the specific dates on which an FIPB application was made, a date on which this was cleared, and the dates on which a revision application was made after 305 crores was illegally pumped
Sure.
into that company without a proper FIPB approval. And
Right.
you know who the minister was at that time. One can easily figure out who the officials in the FIPB at that time were. So
Okay, let me
without
bring in
naming,
Joseph.
I think one can easily find out by association.
Right. No, but then therefore the surprising absence of any mention of them in the FIR. Josie Joseph, what do you make of the evidence? You possibly have had a chance to go through the FIR as well. What do you make of the evidence in this particular case? There are a number of similar cases, as you know, where Karti Chidambaram and his companies are being probed for receiving these mystery payments from companies that also happen to be going to the FIPB or going to the to the finance ministry for clearance. But in this case of INX, do you think that based on whatever you've read and seen so far, the CBI has a strong case? Or are you not convinced?
Srinivasan, on the face of it, it's a very classic case of how corruption happens in this country. You palm off, trade some influence and use one of your connections, relative, father, uncle, somebody to get something cleared for somebody else. So you and I are very familiar with this kind of corruption over the last 2-3 decades that we have been
Yes.
reporting. But what I am concerned about, as I was reading the FIR and going through today's motion and whatever has been happening over the last few months, is that I hope this doesn't end up like one of those circuses that CBI and the ED plays out to curry favor the government of the day. I hope this comes to a logical conclusion and the guilty are punished. But please recall over the last 15 years or maybe 20 years, what we have seen is that agencies, both ED and CBI, have very tactically, strategically, they play favorites, they pick cases, and then they just disappear. Remember 2006-07 when the Tehelka tapes and the related affairs were filed by the UPA government against the NDA government. The charges were much more specific, evidence was much more specific, the accused were named, but what happened to those FIRs 6-7 years down the line, most of them were closed, saying that there is no evidence.
Okay,
So-
let me just take that to GVL Narasimha Rao. I mean, you know, the timing of this is also something that we can't ignore. Today was supposed to be the 3-year anniversary of the Modi government, presumably a day where the government would like to celebrate its achievements, and then you have these big raids on Chidambaram and on Lalu Yadav. Was this also somewhere a political calculation in order to to define the optics, that rather than have the opposition take a critical appraisal of your 3-year track record, you'd rather have them on the back foot?
No, Srinivasan, I think let me correct you. We are actually, the government of Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi was sworn in on 26th May. And that is what we have been celebrating as a anniversary year.
I know,
10
but it was
days from
supposed to
now,
start
a third
from
anniversary
today. It was
will be
supposed to sort of
celebrated.
formally kick
But
off from
every
today and then-
decision.
Yeah.
No, nothing was supposed to kick off today. But
Okay.
then this government has been active for the last 3 years. So for you to say demonetization was done about 4 months ago, and there was no specific timeline or deadline for it. There
Okay.
were surgical strikes carried out earlier. So
Right.
this is a government. There was a Black Money Act, a Foreign Assets Act that was passed more than a year ago.
Sure.
There was Binami property transaction rules that were framed about 7 months ago. So this government has been working all through its tenure, and this happens to be, these raids happened today. That's a time of choosing of the investigative agencies.
Right.
Government doesn't sit and decide which agency carries out what raids where. This is a part of the investigation process, which agencies are entitled or they're free to do as per their own. Only thing is this government, let me tell you this categorically.
Okay, let me move
this
on.
Prime Minister, just one line, he doesn't spare anyone, nor does he target anyone. So
Okay.
if someone feels that I have not been spared, let them not expect any mercy from this government.
Okay.
Nobody will
All
be
right.
targeted and no one will be spared.
No one will be targeted, no one will be spared. I want to get Josie Joseph's view on that in just a second. But let me try to see if I can go back to Priyanka and see if she's able to hear me now clearly. Are you, Priyanka, able to hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. You know, the question I was asking you was just at the very outset that here you have a company run by Karti Chidambaram, son of the finance minister, that offers services to companies that want clearances from the finance ministry itself. So leaving aside even the corruption allegation, isn't this just a major conflict of interest?
No, how can it be a conflict of interest if someone is involved in a business practice? It is so unfortunate that any politician who is elected to a position,
Yes.
or his family also becomes accountable for any business that they tend to start. It is
But
clear
with his
targeting. Let's
father's
also be
ministry.
very clear whether it is
But with
in
his
Bihar,
father's ministry.
wherever the party is out of power, the Bharatiya Janata Party. No, please allow me to complete, Srinivasan. I've come into this debate after 20 minutes of this discussion. I haven't got to hear what the BJP has to say, what Mr. Josie Joseph has to say, but allow me to speak what I have to say. Now, here are a couple of things. Wherever the Bharatiya Janata Party is not in power, they have been practicing, they have been using the ED, the IT and the CBI to conduct raids and to come up with false allegations and to, cook up stories where none exist. Whether it is in Tamil Nadu, whether it is in West Bengal, whether it is in Bihar, whether it is in Himachal Pradesh, it is a clear vendetta politics that the Bharatiya Janata Party has been following ever since they have come into power. It took them 3 years to come up with something, these cooked up allegations, when none of it they can prove in any court of law. yet they continue to raid people just because they want to deflect attention from their own weaknesses, where they have no answers to give as far as the 3 years of governance is concerned, where their promises to that they had made to the people of the country are concerned. So like Karti Chidambaram has said, and like Mr. P. Chidambaram has said, that they will fight it in the court of law. But this kind of vindictive attitude that we are seeing from the government in power is extremely unfortunate and will stand exposed in any court of law.
Okay, let me just, before I get JVL a chance to respond, let me move on to the other big set of raids today, and that of course was on Lalu Yadav, and the IT department in this case raided close to 22 locations that were linked to Lalu Yadav. These were both properties and individuals. They claimed that they were probing close to 1,000 crores of Benami deals, and in fact even alleged Halwala dealers were raided for having links to Lalu Yadav and to what the BJP has been alleging are his Benami properties. Now, I spoke a short while ago to Sushil Kumar Modi, the senior BJP leader from Bihar, who's been leading this charge against Lalu and his alleged Benami land holdings, and began by asking him that is this a clear case of a politically driven investigation where, Sushil Kumar Modi, you hold a series of press conferences, you supposedly unearth all these shady land deals, and then as if on cue, the IT department goes out and conducts these raids?
See, it is not only myself who is exposed, even NDTV, they exposed a story regarding AB Exports Private Limited and a house at D1088 New Friends Colony. And we knew that when something will take place, they will always go hiding behind vendetta, samajik nyay, garib, pichhada.
So you're saying that there is no political vendetta?
No, Lalu Yadav should say about the merit of the case. The exposure which even NDTV about that AB Exports Private Limited and some other channels also about the different properties. तो उनको तो ये बताना चाहिए कि ये जो डॉक्यूमेंट्स हैं, ये जो दस्तावेज हैं, ये गलत है, सही हैं, उसका जवाब देना चाहिए. उसका जवाब देने के बजाय they are hiding behind samajik nyay.
Now, Lalu Yadav says that these are all companies which are openly held, they are listed on the government website, there is no big secret.
See, it is not a question, it is a secret or it is an open. The question is why Om Prakash Katyal, why the famous money launderer, this Virender Jain who is inside jail, why this Nagpal, Vivek Nagpal, why this Katyal, why these people transferred their entire property of that company along with the shareholding to Lalu's family. That is the question. And that is the question ki a closed company having asset of 50 crore, 100 crore or 2 crore, 15 crore and the entire holding is being transferred to Lalu's family.
Okay. All right, Sushil Kumar Modi, thanks very much indeed for that. But on the subject of Bihar, again, on the politics of it, GVL Narasimha Rao, that, again, the allegation is that you're trying to break the alliance there. You haven't still quite digested the defeat in Bihar and you're using this to drive a wedge between Nitish and Lalu.
No, Srinivasan, I think it's so farcical that people come up with any number of excuses. I think let's assume for the sake of it that we want to expose the corruption of Lalu Prasad Yadav. Right. We want to expose corruption of the Congress party. Is there an embargo on it? Are we expected to cover up their corrupt scandals? Are we not expected to really expose their corruption? People have given us a mandate to expose their corruption.
Okay, Priya, let
them talk about this corruption.
Okay, let her respond.
You know what is farcical? You know what is farcical, Mr. Rao? You know what is farcical, Mr. Rao? When you refuse to do a CBI investigation on the
allegations.
What is farcical is when you refuse to do an investigation on the Chhattisgarh scam. What is farcical? You refuse to do an investigation on Rajasthan scam.
This is
what is
not
farcical
answering
is you
questions,
refuse to do investigation on the Maharashtra scam. You know, you are targeting and you're selectively targeting those people who have been speaking out against your government and exposing the inadequacy of your government and how your government has failed to live up to the expectations of the people And this is
Whether all
very
this money
apparent
was paid
by
to
the
Karti
way you have
Chidambaram
gone
or not.
ahead and targeted
Just come, let's
the
debate the
states
facts.
where you all are not in power.
Okay,
What
let me
stops
just-
you
okay,
if
okay.
you want
Can I
to
just
expose
bring Josie
corruption?
Joseph in here?
What stops you from launching an investigation in Nar Patel land scam?
Okay,
What stops you
Josie
from
Joseph-
starting an investigation on what
Priyanka, just a
Shivraj
second,
Singh
just a
Chauhan is
second,
being
Priyanka,
accused of?
just a second.
So this
Josie
is
Joseph-
a ridiculous explanation.
All right,
and farcical
Josie Joseph.
There is
explanation
absolutely-
coming from.
There is a
just
CBI probe,
Priyanka and GVL,
Supreme
just a
Court
second, if I can just bring
monitored
Josie Joseph in here, that Josie Joseph, while
your hypocrisy to
certainly on
yourself.
merit, if you look at the evidence that is both emerging from the CBI FIR into Karti Chidambaram and these land deals of Lalu Yadav, certainly there's a lot there that needs to be examined. There's many question marks. But do you take that point as well, that the kind of action that we're seeing on opposition parties and opposition leaders is somewhat turning out to be one-sided? I mean, if you just look at Uttar Pradesh alone, you had a situation there where the chief minister, who's also the head of the Home Department rejects a proposal to prosecute the chief minister for a hate speech given in 2007.
Go.
Yeah, there are two things. One is that what is actually farcical is that our political class has really mastered the art of misusing agencies and powers and institutions, and then we put up this elaborate drama in television studio channels and otherwise, and then we go back to peaceful sleep. Tomorrow morning all of us will come back, assemble again to discuss another topic. So that is the real farcical part of the entire issue. But the fact is that this government has mastered and is able to use investigation agencies and power much more effectively and much more blatantly than any governments in recent times. It's not that the last UPA government did not misuse agencies, but this government seems to be going in certain particular fashion. They are going after very petty corruption of maybe the Aam Aadmi Party government or some officer close to them, while the big sharks out there are roaming free.
GVL, let me just ask you this. Like I said, we're putting up on the graphics on the screen are all the different land deals of Lalu Yadav, one after the other. This pattern of shell companies, once again, the pattern of shell companies that for mysterious reasons transfer land assets to Lalu and his family. So again, there is merit in these charges. But if you look at the actions of the investigating agencies in the past 3 years, it appears almost as if nobody else in this country is corrupt except for the opposition.
Srinivasan, when demonetization announcement was made,
yes,
I think there were people with some association with the BJP also who suffered, and they were
at
made
a very
to,
lower level.
They had to go through
At a
the
very
same
lower
process
level.
as anybody else. There is no question of no, but see, you can't really tell me one allegation against our government for 3 years. You've been
can I give you one example?
You've been doing this show for the last 3 years.
What about the example
Tell me
I
one
cited?
allegation
Okay,
against
what
our
about
government.
the example I cited of the Uttar Pradesh chief minister, where you have his own government reject a plea to prosecute
No,
him?
what about the Sahara Birla diaries?
No,
which
I
accuses the Prime Minister of
can
taking
I-
bribe.
can I-
Why aren't they launching
Srinivasan?
a CBI investigation on that?
No,
Why
I'm just
do
on the
they-
point
why-
of-
I
why
think
do
you
they not
tried
launch
your
an
best when you
investigation
were
on
in
that? This is
government to
selective targeting.
misuse the CBI, and then you didn't succeed. Srinivasan, the question that you made, the reference that you made,
Yes,
refers to some kind of a hate speech, alleged hate speech.
Yes.
And that was a case that was booked by the previous government, and there were several such attempts they have made. And if you think, if the court finds this recommendation of the department
Yes.
is not tenable, the court will take a view on it. But don't expect the government
But-
not to take a view on this.
But isn't that a direct
It was, we had
example
always
of the kind of
contended
conflict
that
of
this
interest
was
that
an
you just
attempt.
alleged today against Mr. Chidambaram and his son, that this is the same kind of conflict of interest where
No, the two are not
the government
comparable.
of the
The
day
two are not comparable
is
at
protecting
all.
its chief
This is
minister.
a case of financial misappropriation running into hundreds of crores. What you are referring to is a political speech that was
It's a hate
categorized
speech
and targeted
which started
as
according
hate
to the
speech.
petitioner
The
a
two
riot.
are simply not
Okay.
comparable.
All right.
It's apples
Okay,
and
can
oranges.
I give you
All right, we're
specific
going
charges?
over. We're going over.
When Narendra Modi ji was the Chief Minister of Gujarat?
Okay, all right. We'll have to leave it there. This is opening up another debate. But thank you very much indeed for joining us on what's been a very, very lively discussion. GVL Narasimha Rao, Priyanka Chaturvedi and Josie Joseph. Thanks for watching. That's all the time we have on Reality Check. Good night.